Good morning. This is Solomon Jones on 900 AM, 96.1 FM, WURD. And I want to welcome you to Wake Up with Word. And this is a special feature, Tangled Titles, Holding On to Generational Wealth. It's brought to you by TD Bank. We're joined this morning by Shelley Silva, Head of Business Development and Community Outreach, Pennsylvania and New Jersey Market. Shelley, good morning.
Good morning.
All right. We're also joined by Vanessa Owens. She's Community Mortgage Sales Manager at TD Bank. Vanessa, good morning.
Good morning.
And Mike Jones. He's Supervising Attorney at Philadelphia VIP. Mike, good morning.
Morning.
All right. So I want to start by just letting people know what tangled titles are, because I'm not sure that everybody knows exactly what they are. Shelley, can you just give us a definition? What is a tangled title?
I'm going to actually throw that to Mike since he's our today and make sure I'm going to test my knowledge with him and see what he said. And then I'll let you know if he got it right.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
First off, thank you for having me. Broadly speaking, a tangled title is when you live in a home that for any number of reasons you are not on the deed, but you should be. I'm going to go into more specifics later on, but the thing that I want to remind people is that if you take nothing from me, if you believe you have a tangled title or are facing some kind of real estate tax or mortgage foreclosure, please call the Save Your Home Philly hotline at 215-334-4663. Again, the Save Your Home Philly hotline at 215-334-4663.
Shelley, did he get it right?
You got it right.
All right. So a lot of people in Philadelphia and beyond really dealing with tangled titles. It's not something that's unique to Philadelphia, though. I remember seeing a film called Gaining Ground that was about Black farmers who had this same issue and were losing their land because they weren't the people who were on the titles. Vanessa, as a community mortgage sales manager, if your name isn't on the title, if your name isn't on the deed to that house, what does that mean in terms of your ability to get any kind of loan on that house?
Well, it means that you will not be able to. In order to be able to purchase or get a loan against a property, you must have ownership, and that deed is your ownership.
And so if you can't get, say, a home equity loan, or you can't get a loan to do repairs on the house, I mean, it explains a lot. Like, as I learned about this issue, it just explains a lot about what you see in some of our communities where poverty is an issue, and people have not passed down the property in the same way that the system might want you to pass it down. What is the proper way to deal with passing down property that you own to your relatives? Vanessa, I'll ask you that question.
That is another Mike question, unfortunately.
Mike.
I think
they put you on the spot, Mike. What do you got?
I appreciate it. I like being on the spot. The best thing to do, if you or a family member is planning on passing down property, is to have an estate plan, to draft a will. There are a number of places in the city of Philadelphia that can assist. But if you're looking to get estate planning documents like a will, you can call the Philadelphia Legal Assistance Intake Hotline at 215-981-3800. Again, that's 215-981-3800. They will be able to assist you in figuring out whether or not a will is appropriate for you, and they may refer you to an organization like mine, Philadelphia VIP.
So, Mike, I'm going to ask you a follow-up question concerning wills, because I was reading up on this, and one of the things I saw was that even having a will might not be enough. You need to have the will probated in Philadelphia and other places as well. How do you go about doing that?
Well, once you have a will, it's a common misconception is that the will needs to be registered at the Register of Wills before you die. But in fact, that's not the case. We want people to hold on to their wills in a safe place. It should be signed, it should be notarized, and there should be two witnesses within it. That will make the lives of your executors much easier in the future. After you've passed, hopefully your executor knows where you've left your will. They're able to take that. They can likely speak to an attorney at any of the legal services organizations, but to properly do it, they will need to go through the Register of Wills. That is where you'll actually register the will. It's after they've died, and they'll open the estate, which will allow them to step into the shoes of the deceased owner and authorize the distribution of property, including the house itself.
How common is this problem in the city of Philadelphia? We have a lot of home ownership in Philadelphia, but tangled titles seem to be a huge problem in our city. Vanessa, how big is the problem?
It is a very big problem. It is not just in Philadelphia. It is throughout the United States. I want to share a personal tangled title story, if I can, that involves my family.
Okay.
Okay. In the mid 1900s, my grandfather purchased over 100 acres of land, intending for that land to remain in the family for generations. However, when he passed away, he did not have a will. According to the law, though, at that time, the property was to be inherited by my grandmother, his surviving widow, and his 19 legitimate children. And yes, you heard me correctly, 19 legitimate children. He believed this arrangement, right, would ensure his family protection and continue ownership of the land. However, over the years, the original heirs passed away, leaving only two surviving heirs today. Each of those original heirs had multiple children, bringing that total of the current heirs to the property to over 100 today. As time passed, the heirs continue to pass off. Everyone continue to have more children, further expanding that family legal claim to the land. While we have a general understanding today of who and how many heirs are still alive, there are still some individuals we are unable to locate. Now, for many years, my auntie, she's taken the reign and she's been responsible for the administrating of the state. However, at the age of 71, she has now decided that she no longer wants that responsibility. So she is now proposing that someone or the group of family members purchase the land to keep it in the family. So we are currently now seeking counsel to help us with our complex tangle title situation. This land, with my grandfather, the way that it was, we inherited, has been a tangle title situation from the very beginning. And as the years pass, more people die, more people have children, it has become very, very complicated. So just to reiterate what Mike said, this is a tangled title situation, meaning, every heir, all of us have an interest in the property, but none of us, not a single person, has full ownership or right. So it is a very, very tangled situation, and it is very, very common throughout the United States.
Well, let me ask you this question. Given your personal experience and given how your family has dealt with this situation, how does that affect the way that you do your job and the way that you deal with people who have this kind of situation in their own families?
Basically, as when you did your intro, I'm a community mortgage sales manager, and I manage a team, right, of dedicated loan officers, community mortgage loan officers. One of the things that we do is we provide guidance and support to individuals throughout their home buying journey. Our goal is to empower individuals and families, especially those in low to moderate, underserved, and multicultural communities, with resources, education, and mortgage options, to help them achieve homeownership and maintain homeownership. So one of the things that we do, and even, the most knowledgeable and prepared individual sometimes experience unexpected challenges such as tangled titles. So some of the things that we do is we create relationships with different organizations like Philly, like with Mike and his organizations, in addition to providing the education. So when we talk, and we have our home buyer workshops. We talk to the homeowner about the Tangled title, and about seeking help from the attorneys as to how they want to hold title, to also ensure that they're making sure that they talk to someone about obtaining a will, estate planning, or something to help them after they purchase. So we try to help provide that education or the resources so that they can get the help that they need with this particular situation. However, with that being said, even though we may take those steps, Tangled title does not just happen to people who just purchase a home or pass down a home. It happens to people who, are existing homeowners. So the education is something that really needs to be provided around this topic, because it is a very, very common situation.
Solomon, I just like to add, Vanessa's team is in these communities and where these things are happening, right? And that's what makes how TD shows up around this space differently, right? We're not like,
Mhm.
nobody knows what's happening. Like, her team is in the community. They live in these neighborhoods. They work with people. They become trusted advisors. And they leave with a sense of understanding the challenges that are being faced. And so we want to get it right. About not just getting people in homes, it's keeping people in homes and keeping that generational wealth, particularly around Black families, because we know home ownership is one of the ways to create generational wealth.
Yeah, Census Bureau data says that as of the fourth quarter of 2024, the white home ownership rate was a little above 74%, and that's almost 30 points higher than the black home ownership rate of 45.9%. Now, in Philadelphia, again, a lot of black people own homes. But when you have these tangled titles in community, and Shelley, I'll ask you this question: how does it affect the community as a whole when you have several people in the community who are dealing with these tangled titles and can't get the money they need, maybe to maintain or even to keep their homes?
I think you answered it, right? I think it's just that:
Mhm.
maintain the home. If something, a repair is needed, they're not able to get financing because we have to address it. And, I think that the question is, why aren't more people focused on this? Because part of home ownership and affordable housing is not just placing people, it's keeping people.
Yeah.
Mike and his team at Philly VIP, TD, we show up for the community. We're thinking about our community, our customers, and our colleagues. When
Mhm.
is not the only colleague at TD Bank that particularly is dealing with this issue. And so when it came to the forefront through leadership discussions, we said we have to figure out how to tackle this issue, and you have to put money as well as resources behind it.
Yeah. So, Mike, of course, one of those resources is legal help. So, if somebody is dealing with a tangled title situation, and they find out that, wait a minute, this house is not in my name. I don't own this house. A lot of people don't even know that they are not the real owner of the house.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
so, once they find that out, what are the legal steps that they should take in order to begin to rectify that problem?
Well, Solomon, it every lawyer's favorite answer is it depends. And it really depends on what is the exact situation that they are confronting. Why are they impacted by a tangled title? Is it in similar to Vanessa's story about her grandfather, is it that there was a home owned by someone, they didn't have a will, and you are residing in it and need to get title by the through probate? That is something that is, as I said, very common. And the things that people need in those cases are typically gathering your family tree. Hopefully, it's not 100+ heirs, but that's not an uncommon thing, I bet, especially in the farms. But gathering family tree, getting contact information, figuring out who wants to be appointed the administrator of the estate, and following the specific steps that are necessary to do that. And it takes a lot of coordination among a family and a lot of cooperation too. However, there are other ways that someone can be residing in and impacted by a tangled title. We assist people who are going through, who need to go through adverse possession, that they have squatters' rights. They've lived in their home for over 20 years. They have no legal relationship with the person that owns the home, no legal or family relationship with the person who owns the home, but they have acted as if they are the owner of the home. They'll have to go through the court system to show that they are an owner of the home. We also help with completing lease purchase agreements, where if someone has not been able to afford or haven't been deemed creditworthy for a mortgage, for example, they may go find someone who's able to sell them their home for a lease purchase agreement. I'll pay in installments over a period of time to make sure that at the end of it, you'll give me the deed. Frequently, what happens in those cases is the seller just disappears. We will assist in going through the courts to make sure that that contract is completed and that that deed is recorded in their name. So it all depends on how their situation impacts them, is really how we can best help them and what their steps are.
And so, one of the things that you kind of hit on, and I want to dig into this a little bit, and Vanessa, you can chime in as well, is what happens when there are a lot of family members? Because it does take cooperation. Suppose somebody says, no, I don't want to be part of this. I don't want to sign it over to you. I think you're being greedy. When it comes to property, people start fighting. So what happens if there's somebody in the family who does not want to do what it takes to resolve the issue easily?
Vanessa, I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Go ahead, Vanessa.
Well, I will give you I'll go back to my family. Right now, with the situation that we have and the tangled title situation that we're in, for us, we just wanted to sell timber on the land. So with the vast amount of people that we have involved, there were several people who said, no, I do not want to sell. Okay, so we had to, basically locate everyone, attain signatures to sell. But in this case, we had to actually go seek legal counsel. And we were advised that it would be a majority decision in this particular situation. So in our situation, 90% decided that they would sell the timber, 10% did not. So we were able to, but we had to seek legal recourse because, we had to have a certain amount of people to agree. So that is something that happened with me personally with the land. And just to give you an added caveat to it, those that agreed to, the 90% that agreed to sell the land, they lost a third to the 10% that did not, because they were not entitled to pay an attorney fees because they did not agree. So that was, something that I experienced with my family. So yeah, it can be quite complicated, and you have to really get into the legalese with it. And, and that's what, Mike can share. It really becomes a complicated and a very legal, type situation. Yep.
Yeah, I think that
Not unresolvable, but you have to get legal involved.
it's very delicate, and people, Solomon, as you had said, when property's involved and when somebody passes, people they change. Their opinions change, and sometimes when money gets involved, they especially change. And I think that the important thing that I've learned with handling families and trying to get towards cooperation, which is truly what my organization and the legal services organizations around Philadelphia who can help those with tangled titles, is that constant repetition and trying to let them know that, like, there's no need. We're not trying to pull a fast one on anyone. We want to be as transparent as possible, because the legalese can absolutely confuse people. I mean, there are certain documents that people have to sign that are called one thing, and it makes people think that they haven't they signed something that gives everything over. And it also takes a lot of time, and being clear and transparent about the amount of time that things can take is also something that's really helpful, because people can get frustrated that they've already signed this document before when in fact they have to sign a second thing. So I think transparency, expectation setting, and being as congenial as possible are the three most important things. We can't win them all. There are sometimes families that are irreconcilable. But the important thing is that we try and make sure our clients are as forthright as possible with their siblings, with their family members, with their anyone, because we need their help. And if we are asking for help, hopefully that means that people are receptive to giving it.
Yeah. Yeah, we are delving into the issue of tangled titles this morning on Wake Up with Word, and we're talking, of course, with Shelley Silva, head of Metro Business Development, PA, in New Jersey at TD Bank, Vanessa Owens, who's their community mortgage sales manager at TD Bank, and Mike Jones, supervising attorney at Philadelphia VIP. So we're going to go to break. On the other side of this break, we're going to continue this conversation. We've laid out why you need to worry about or be concerned about tangled titles. And now we're going to talk about what you can do to avoid them. I'm Solomon Jones. This is Wake Up with Word. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Wake Up with Word. We are, of course, doing a special segment this morning, Tangled Titles, Holding On to Generational Wealth, brought to you by TD Bank. And we're talking with Shelley Silva, head of Metro Business Development, PA, in New Jersey for TD Bank, Vanessa Owens, community mortgage sales manager at TD Bank, and Mike Jones, supervising attorney at Philadelphia VIP. So we talked about how messy things can get if there is no will and no clear plan of succession for property. It's important because property is worth so much. The value of it tends to go up. So, for example, on a national level, a homeowner who purchased a single family existing home 10 years ago at the median sale price of $169,000 is likely to have gained $225,000 in home equity if the home was sold in the third quarter of 2021. That's a lot of money. And so there is a lot at stake. I want to ask you this question, Vanessa. How much of a role does home ownership play in wealth creation in our country?
Absolutely. Just like you said, homeownership is very important to wealth creation. Just to use your example, right? Back in 1990, a house, sold for $150,000. Today, that same house sells for between $400,000 and $500,000. So we're talking about over $300,000 in equity. This is money that can be passed down to the next generation. So it is absolutely very important. At one time in the industry, when we were in a normal mortgage environment, houses are appraised by 5% consistently year over year over year. So if someone owned the house, it's an appreciating asset. So as you continue to own the house, you continue to obtain value. I remember growing up as a kid, and my grandmother always said, land is money. Home ownership is money. And at the time, I didn't know what she meant by that.
Mm-hmm.
It was instilled in us, right? From that time period that everyone wanted that house. Well, I grew up in the early 70s. So therefore, during that time period, we were told that everyone wanted to buy that white house, that house with the white picket fence, right? So the general idea behind that was that home ownership created generational wealth. So that was the purpose of it. So yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So we talked in the last segment about how messy things can get if
Mhm.
there is no will, no clear plan of succession. And so, Mike, I want to go to you and talk about exactly what we should do, knowing that we're all going to die. I think that's a fact we can establish. All of us are going to die. I know we don't want to talk about it. And I know that's part of the reason why we have tangled titles, because people don't want to address it, but you have to. And so, what should you do? You own a home. What should you do to make sure that there is a clear plan of succession for ownership of that home?
I think that estate planning is the single most important thing. There's a lot of information out there right now about estate planning and about tangled titles. And it's truly important that you speak to someone who knows what they're talking about and speaking to an attorney. Um, I think that if people have, well, rather, I should say that in my experience working with clients, one of the most common misconceptions that people have is that I should avoid trying to estate plan for the future and instead estate plan now, and I should transfer my deed now. I'm not saying that's inherently a bad thing, but that is one piece in a giant puzzle that people are operating in. And you may, by transferring your property to someone you love, thinking that you're going to save them from having to deal with a tangled title, may be impacting your own benefits. You may lose if you're receiving Social Security, you may become asset ineligible. If you're receiving Medicaid, or if you might receive Medicaid in the next few years, they may determine that you've transferred the resources without below fair market value, and therefore you are unable to receive that necessary long-term care. Estate planning is the solution to this. It can protect you and it can protect your assets in the future. I will just, and again, like just because I said that one thing might not be helpful, transferring your deed now, you should speak to an attorney. And that's why I think that everyone who is who owns their home should set up an estate plan and have a will. And they can do that by calling Philadelphia Legal Assistance Intake Hotline at 215-981-3800. That's 215-981-3800.
So we're talking really about generational wealth, and Shelley,
I'm sorry.
I want to ask you about that, about the barriers to generational wealth that are there. I mean, home ownership certainly is one way to build generational wealth. What are some of the barriers to that?
I think when we think about it at TD, right, we created a corporate citizenship platform, which is called the TD Ready Commitment. And in that Ready Commitment, it's 4 drivers of change. And for us, financial security is like one of our main focuses. And when we talk about financial security, it's not just about affordable housing as a focus. It's also about jobs of the future, being prepared for the changing world. And so when we think about security and financial wellness, we think about it holistically at the bank. Someone said to me, why does TD care about tangled titles? Like, for us, it directly aligns to how we show up, right? We understand that stable, safe, strong communities equal prosperity for us all, right? And you talked about earlier in our conversation what happens when people have a tangled title. Well, we know the houses go into disarray, one house on the block goes. So it's critically important that we get up close and personal with this. And for us, we've been around affordable housing and supporting affordable housing since 2005 through our through our foundation. And then last year, we hosted our first ever affordable housing summit on the campus of Howard University with over 125 affordable housing practitioners. And we created a list of the challenges that exist. And at the top of the list was preservation of affordable housing in our diverse and underserved communities.
Yeah. And in order to preserve that housing, of course, Vanessa, you need money.
You
right?
absolutely do. Yes.
You deal with mortgages and, of course, home equity loans or lines of credit. Also, help people to maintain and build up their housing. So, talk about the link between making sure that your deed is right and being able to access the capital that you need.
Yeah, one thing about that is that once people have that deed in place and they can show that they have that ownership, then we can move forward with providing them with any type of financial assistance they need, in relationship to that home. But the key is going to be, talking with the customer. One of the things that we do as a community mortgage team is that we are very, very focused on education. We're focused on making sure that that customer understand exactly what type of transaction they're getting into. Home equity is good for some, not for all. So we take the time and we go over and we talk about the various products that we have, and we talk with that homeowner to try to see what they're trying to accomplish. And then we provide them with the product that matches up with what they're trying to accomplish. So yes.
Yeah. So we are, of course, talking about Tangled Titles, and we are talking with Shelly Silva, head of Metro Business Development at Pennsylvania, New Jersey for TD Bank, Vanessa Owens, community mortgage sales manager at TD Bank, and Mike Jones, supervising attorney for Philadelphia VIP. This is Tangled Titles, holding on to generational wealth. So, Shelly, I know that TD Bank works with a number of other organizations around making sure that people can keep their homes, making sure that there are opportunities for people to do more with what they have. Convergence Philadelphia, what is it?
It's a commitment involving the collaboration of a local network of housing leaders, community advocates, and industry stakeholders to strengthen existing programs and develop new long-term sustainable solutions to help the home ownership gap, specifically for Blacks and Hispanics in the city of Philadelphia. But convergence actually exists in other cities. And I think the mayor actually spoke about it yesterday when she did her address about housing. And so the work that TD gets to do in partnership with other leaders is critically important. And it's always about staring down the issue and then putting meaningful solutions behind them. And nobody can solve the housing crisis alone. So we do have to work with other organizations. And it's fantastic for TD to be a leader in that space.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that we're having this conversation right after the mayor did her address talking about housing and talking about taking out bonds and really a $2 billion investment in housing, not only new housing, but maintaining existing housing. We have a lot of housing in Philadelphia that has been around for a long time, but it's housing with good bones, right? It's strong. That's Philly housing. You know what I'm saying? But if we can maintain that, we can maintain the value of that and maintain our neighborhoods and maintain the property values that people have. Like whole neighborhoods working together, Vanessa, around housing is critically important.
It's very important. One thing about that, right? The more that we invest in our neighborhoods, right? The better schooling we have, the better. I mean, it's just there's just so many additional benefits that come with that. So, absolutely. One of the things that I do love about Philadelphia, and I do cover a large market. My market is from Virginia to New York, but there's no market that I'm working in right now that really attacked this issue with heirs property and tangled title as Philadelphia has, nor do I see anyone putting in the investment into the community, into housing the way that I see that is being done in Philadelphia. We are involved in numerous projects throughout Philadelphia. One that I always tout is the turnkey process, which is a turnkey program, which we are very involved in with the city of Philadelphia, which is a very good initiative that they have going forward. So yes, and it just makes a difference when it comes to investing in our communities.
Mm-hmm. And when we talk about community, of course, TD Bank is headquartered in the greater Philadelphia area. Mm-hmm. And so we are glad that you're here as a corporate citizen. What responsibility, Shelly, does that come with?
Challenges that exist in Philadelphia, staring them down with the leadership and providing the resources and the collaboration needed to challenge it. You know, when the mayor talked about the cleanest, greenest city, we're a green bank. And so we understood exactly what she meant about making sure that we're not just, we are here. We're Philadelphia. This is where we live, work, and play. Are successful. And we want the community here to thrive. And our leaders are so invested. I was talking to our regional president, Rob Curley, this morning, and somebody said to him, TD bankers travel in a pack. And it's so, when we go to a Philadelphia event, you're not going to see one. Because it's probably in somebody's neighborhood. You know, I was born and raised in this city. Philadelphia is my home. I went to Girls High, class of 237. I know some listeners are probably Girls High girls. I care and our leaders care about Philadelphia's success, and we put our money where our mouth is.
Well, I love it. I love it. And I think that it absolutely matters. So when you talk about solutions for this, Mike, as we come to a close and some things that people can really use as practical takeaways, what are some of the things that people can do to address the issue of tangled titles here in Philadelphia and beyond?
Again, the most important thing I would say is contact a legal service organization, any of them throughout Philadelphia, who can help determine if you have a tangled title and what is the appropriate pathway to move forward in resolving it. I'll say the same thing I say to everybody. If you let them turn you down, don't self-select you being rejected for some kind of eligibility issue. Call them and ask for help. They can give you advice or they can direct you to someone else. The best place to go is by calling the Save Your Home Philly hotline, 215-334-4663. Once again, 215-334-4663 for the Save Your Home Philly hotline.
All right. Well, I want to thank all of you for joining us this morning on Wake Up with Word. For Tangled Titles, holding on to general wealth, of course, brought to you by TD Bank. Our guest was Shelley Silva, head of Metro Business Development for Pennsylvania and New Jersey at TD Bank. Vanessa Owens, community mortgage sales manager at TD Bank. And Mike Jones, supervising attorney at Philadelphia VIP. Thank you all for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I'm Solomon Jones. This is WURD Radio. We'll be right back.